that striking scene, a man walking with an upside down American flag. What did that moment represent to you?
We have a lot of violent shootings in the United States. And when they started to interview the people on the school's campus, there were always warnings. there were, people would say, well, he said he was going to do this, but I didn't really believe him. She said this, but I didn't really believe. So I remember my 12th grade teacher, Miss Fryer, used to have a sign on the board that read, "You cannot not communicate. You cannot not communicate. If I ask you your name 10 times and you don't answer me 10 times, you're communicating. So that you're not going to answer me." So when I saw that flag, I knew it was symbolic already, but to see and then just to have a flag walking down the streets in the city, and but yet you in full fatigue and it's upside down. So I turned the car around, take a picture. Little did I know what I was going to do with it, but it was a motivation for the color of the book cover.
So, hello everyone. Today's episode is special. I've been reading this book Shadows of Power and honestly it surprised me in the best way possible. I did not expect. It's bold, it's uncomfortable at times and it opens up a conversation that we usually avoid about men, women, history, power and how all of this has shaped the world we live in. And I'm really excited because today we have Dr. Kevin Brown with us, the author of this book. He's someone who does not just write, he digs, he connects the past with what's happening right now, and he does it in a way that actually makes you think about your own beliefs. So, this is not going to be a typical interview. I want to go deep into the things that hit me while reading the blue stockings, the early fights for women's rights, the way men shape society, the mistakes, the progress, the crisis we are seeing with young men today. So, Dr. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to disclose the answer to all of those magnificent questions that you have raised. It kept me pondering, even though I'm in a restaurant or I'm driving and I want to be, I know what I wrote, but I want to deliver it in a way that the audience also understand it because I find it to be a very, very important topic.
Yeah. So let's start. So, Dr. Brown, before we dive into the heavier themes, so I want to start something from the very beginning. So, why this book? What moment, what image, what frustration made you decide that you have to write on this?
Well, there is no particular moment. I could say there were some frustrations as a result of serving as principal in a school, and while serving as principal, I have to deal with a lot of what we call IEPs, individual educational plans for students who may have a disorder or disability. Well, I was realizing that those were more not in boys, right? Then when I would watch the news, I would see um, boy loses control and drives inside of a home and kills the family while asleep, right? But never his sister. Always boys, right? Um, um, didn't, as a result of being a social scientist and studying the inequities in society and social justice matters, I started to deal with prison, incarceration, and I was looking at it from race, but then I realized gender. 93% of prison population are men to women 7%, and that 7% is less than 100,000, right? To men, like 1.4 and 1.2 million across the United States. But it's not just limited to the United States; it's across the globe, right? So the overrepresentation of boys in special education, and then in my own home, I have two boys, and both slightly delayed. For my older son um, to have concerns where he was diagnosed with ADHD, and when I would go to his therapy in Milwaukee in the Children's Hospital, well, when I would look around, I realized it was only boys. So it's like pieces of a puzzle that I was putting together and I didn't even realize. So now I'm at the red light or the caution light, waiting for it to turn green so I can go. But meanwhile, there are usually men holding signs saying anything helps, God bless, anything, just give me anything, but never his sister. So I was concerned about that. So I put my car in park and and talk to these guys to see what was happening or what were the contributing factors. Did they finish school? Did school fail them? Incarceration, mental health. There were a lot of issues, but yet we see them, but we ignore them. And when the light turns green, everybody proceeds. I don't know. It came to me, and then all of a sudden, I started to see people like Richard Reeves, Scott Galloway, Christine Imba, and I was like, "Whoa, that's right. That's what I've been saying. I've been going around the country talking about boys and trauma, but I hadn't um, categorized it the way that my colleagues or Richard Reeves from Brookings Institute had done so. But yet I was already working on it. But so there were multiple things as it relates to men and mental health, suicide. 85% of all suicide are men. Out of every 185 are men, um, um, to women 15, and that was across race and ethnicity. But yet white men, of the 85%, makes up about 68% to African Americans and Latinos or Hispanics, around 12 to 14%. But yet, even though they are lower than white men, they are 4 times as likely to commit suicide than a black female or a Hispanic female. So, quite alarming.
Okay, that's quite resonating. So you open up chapter 1 with that striking scene, a man walking with an upside down American flag. What did that moment represent to you?
Well, we have a lot of violent shootings in the United States, um, usually at the hands of boys. And when they started to interview the people on the school's campus, there were always warnings. there were, people would say, "Well, he said he was going to do this, but I didn't really believe him. She said this, but I didn't really believe." So I remember my 12th grade teacher, Miss Fryer, used to have a sign on the board that read, "You cannot not communicate. You cannot not communicate. If I ask you your name 10 times and you don't answer me 10 times, you're communicating. So that you're not going to answer me." So when I saw that flag, I knew it was symbolic already, but to see and then just to have a flag walking down the streets in the city, and but yet you in full fatigue and it's upside down. So I turned the car around um, to take a picture. Um, Little did I know what I was going to eventually do with it, but it was a motivation for the color of the book cover, right? As well as another man sitting homeless um, with just a shopping cart, but he still has the American flag. Yeah. And I'm saying, right. So it was just powerful to me that uh, in many ways, America is letting them down, or this hidden crisis that males are experiencing, and no one is doing anything about it. But yet, these guys are remaining loyal.
I'm really interested to know this. How does your book title, Shadows of Power, represent the overall theme of your book?
Yeah, the shadows of powers. In other words, we're living in the shadows. No one or men felt that they would be in power all the time, right? They made rules and laws and policies that supported them.
Okay.
This masculinity, this misogyny, all these things that they put in place were equivalent to, some may say, a unicorn. You couldn't live up to them. They were fluff, but yet they tried to enforce them. But then they started to unravel because they were fluff, they were fake, they were untrue. Women do not have smaller brains. God did not choose men to be over women and to lead and to be breadwinners. These were things that was those are social constructs at the hands of men. Put these things in place. So slavery, women who gave birth, they would take them and put ice picks in their brain and for science and and these totally awful history um, at the hands of men, right? And as a result of these things happening and men doing it, um, they are ignored.
Yeah.
They are ignored. But to ignore them is to ignore 50% of the globe's population or the population.
All right. So, why is society still uncomfortable addressing the male pain?
Say that one more.
Why is society still uncomfortable addressing the male pain?
Yeah, yeah, that's quite fascinating to me because of what I just said. Right, we're talking about uncles, neighbors, police officers, dads, brothers, teachers, coaches, just everyday people, half of the globe, and but it's because of what men done, right? So that shadows to that question, shadows. We're still living in the shadows of those things that men did, right? So even though slavery is over, there's still some repercussions or some residue as a result of those things. These mindsets that people may have regarding someone from India or someone Asian descent or African or Hispanic, right? That was created all these years ago. That women had to stay home. There is no fluke that females are more than not teachers are more than not females. It's because of these things that men created back then. So this motivated the name of the shadow of the book. One gender rose, females. One lost their way, males trying to live up to these false barriers that they put up, and a zero reckoning for us all. In other words, it takes everyone working together in order to clean up the things that males have done across the globe.
Yeah, that's right. So, your chapter on education is incredibly powerful.
So, are you agreeing with me?
I mean, sort of. I do have controversial opinion, but talking about your book, your chapter on education is incredibly powerful. You connect literacy with liberation, and you write about how historically education was used as a both tool and weapon. So, how does a lack of education ripple into things like unemployment, crime, family stability, and mental health?
As a tool, let's look at the 1700s. Men knew the power. As a matter of fact, slaves even knew the power of knowing how to read and write. They said that it was freedom. As a matter of fact, slaves said when they saw white folks reading, they said, they're talking to books. They didn't quite understand it was called reading, but they knew the importance of it. Here's another thing. If a slave knew how to read or write, many times they were killed. Like, wow. Simply because I can look at letters and name them and get some understanding, I was killed for that. Oh, that must be awfully powerful. We got to. So when you have an uneducated population, you can you can enslave them. But when you're educated and you know that when the Bible say under thou master, it wasn't white men, right? That's what they persuaded or convinced these
I
people to
absolutely agree
believe,
with
right?
this.
Yeah. So uh, uh, just just not true.
You brought up that some women in 18th and 19th century actually believe women should not study beyond basic schooling. So why do you think that internalized narrative existed for so long?
But if I can, before I jump there, the rest of that question, the first question, the most recent question, mental health, illness. Well, men refuse to get help when they know something isn't right, or their mother or their siblings or their spouses are telling them, but yet we have been conditioned to think that to ask for help is a sign of weakness, right? There we go, back to the 1600s, 1700s, those things that were laid out from the very beginning, and that's all you know. Your grandfather told you, your great great grandfather told you. It's always been since the beginning, but yet it contributes to the mental health that men, they end up being lonely. When your loneliness breeds heart conditions, strokes, right? Uh, 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 Bad thoughts, joining bad organizations that do awful things that cause chaos, kill people. But when we're educated, you're less likely to do those things. And guys are already risk takers. So now I'm down and out. I have nothing. I don't know what my purpose is anymore in the 21st century, because, after all, there aren't any railroad tracks that need to be built, and highways and interstates, and those things that define masculinity. We're in the informational age, and men have remained cardboard, refusing to adjust, but not his sister. So now you see her consuming jobs across the globe, in the United States especially, consuming jobs that were once saturated by men, but now are saturated by women. Why? Because it requires a college education. Guess who's not going to school? Men. Guess who is? Guess who is going to school? Women.
Okay, that's right. So you have also added so many feminist chapters in the book, like there were so many feminist movement back then. So Wollstonecraft said women should not live in the shadows of their husband but contribute meaningfully to society. So how radical was that in 1700?
Powerful, right? How dare you speak out? Be quiet unless I ask you a question, woman, female, lady, girl, right? How dare you, right? But women have always been powerful with language, despite what males say it. Always. And that's even today, if you look at my book. But yes, that was controversial, but yet valid. And I today know I validate Wollstonecraft. I validate those women because they were right. They didn't live to see, but they were right. Not only were they right in the Blue Stockings and Elizabeth Montague, but they have passed men, right? They have passed. They were very right. They do not have smaller brains, right? So these hidden figures, these women, were significant in shaping um, um, society today. So yes, it was controversial, but yet had to be said. But I am at home with nothing to do. The kids are asleep. I can't leave the house because of your rules, man. But I'm going to use this writing utensil, and I'm going to write, and I'm going to distribute it and give others the opportunity. I'm going to fight you this way. That was education still, right? The power of education is infinite. It's liberating. It gives you opportunities to go places, to be exposed to things, to have understanding, to comprehend. Even if you come in on at the middle of a conversation or at the end of a conversation, you are more likely to grasp it because of your knowledge. But here's one more thing. Education not only benefits you financially, but there are other benefits. Like, I have been reading in the newspaper that there have been shootings in this restaurant or this bar. I'm not going to go. I understand that cigarettes really do cause lung cancer. You're less likely to smoke, right? So you make different decisions, right? And the words are less likely. I am not saying we're perfect, but you're less likely to do things that work against you or work against your health or your life expectancy.
That's right. So, do you think men today are being demonized the same way women were silenced back then?
I think all men are, but I must say this. I won't necessarily say demonize. I will say that there are some misunderstandings, and the role of men and masculinity has to be redefined, right? It cannot be caught in the 20s and the 30s and 40s, right? Uh, you have to adjust, right? There are Teslas now, not 1972 Ford Pintos, or, you know, we're moving away. Or I like to quote, the light bulb was not invented trying to perfect the candle. So you must adjust. Men refuse to adjust, refuse to ask questions. I'm from the era where we're lost, and the wife is saying, my mom is saying, Dad, stop, ask questions. And he is saying, no, I got it. And he was wrong, right? That was all from back then, 1600 something. He was taught that. I'm leading, I'm taking control, but in reality, we were lost. Men, even though it was white men in power who created the Constitution, not Native Americans, not African Americans or Hispanics, it was white men who said these things. But yet, all men today are being penalized for certain things or ignored, but not by everybody, but by too many. In other words, again, opioid addiction, 75% of opioid addiction are men. Fentanyl, men. 12 times more likely to be gamblers, men. 93% prison population, men. 37% of college population, men. To females, 60%. Wow. Those are colossal disparities, right? But it negatively impacts some women more than others, especially women of color who are now educated, and I want someone similar, right? Background, educated, but educated African American women and educated Latino women are less likely to find educated Latino men or educated African American men, thus spending many of their years, especially their prime years, without a spouse because they're refusing to settle or they're still looking, whereas guys are in guyland and burning rubber and doing donuts and hanging out in bars and being immature, neglecting responsibilities.
All right. So, as you said that men are left behind in today's world as compared to women. So, do you think that patriarchy is the sole reason for that?
There are many reasons to the pie, but in my book, I tackle five:
Yeah.
education, mental health, fatherhood, right, incarceration, non-cognitive skills. Um, um, but there's more that people could probably talk about. But I think education is a great, it's colossal, it's significant. Um, um, uh, to lack education or skills minimizes your skill set and opportunities. Um, um, and the research also shows that people who are educated tend to live 7 to 10 years longer. Why? Simply because of, not because you know the square root of nine is three. It's simply because you make different decisions, right?
Yeah.
When
Entire
you're more
lifestyle
like,
is
yeah,
changed because of that. And that's, I agree with that.
yes.
So, you wrote about men creating laws to suppress women. Do you think today's system are now suppressing men in a different way?
By ignoring them, right? But you cannot ignore them because we need men for the stability of life, right? Um, um, we just need to, men especially need to understand that. We're not going back to coal mines, right? The world is advancing. I appreciate the men of Gen Z. They tend to understand that better. And that's because the Gen Z population is more educated than any other generation, right?
Yeah.
So they believe in equal rights. They believe women should work. Or whatever, have equal rights. LGBTQ. They believe in um, um, things that prior generations didn't. Um, but yet that benefits Generation Z. They are going to be more productive. They tend to be more productive because they are more educated. So um, men have to adjust and accept um, some that life or the globe has moved forward in this 21st century, and we need to adjust. That it is okay. That women lead, that women are professors, that women are school teachers, that not just school teachers, but presidents of universities.
Yeah.
They're holding these high positions, right? Because she's educated.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll move towards rapid fire round. You just have to answer in one word or one line. One book you think every man should read. One book that you think every young man should read.
Shadows.
Your own book, Shadows of
Yes.
Power. Okay, apart from your own book, is there any other book that every young man should read?
Of Boys and Men
Okay. One
by
woman.
Richard Reeve.
Sure. What? One woman from history you wish people talk about more.
Alice Paul.
Okay. A belief you held 10 years ago and you don't agree with anymore.
that well, I do not believe that women are inferior.
Okay.
I do not believe that women are inferior. I think they are um, just as capable, if not more capable, than men in many ways.
Okay. A word you would use to describe masculinity today.
Mature masculinity versus immature masculinity. Mature masculinity is the way to go. Where it is okay, that you don't have to be the sole breadwinner, that is you're equal. What do you mean women just cook or wash the dishes? That is equitable, that anyone can do this in the house, including men. Um, we have to do better as a society, and not ignore men, because when we sweep dirt up under the carpet, the room eventually begins to smell. Men and boys need our help, and we need everyone working together to help men and boys. And everyone benefits because men are important. Mature masculinity is my word. Mature masculinity, not toxic masculinity or immature. It works against society, it works against men, it works against families, it works against everyone.
Alright, that's quite insightful. A quote from your book that still hits you personally.
Boys who hurt us.
Okay. One stereotype about men you want gone forever.
That men lack empathy.
Okay. If you could have a 10-minute conversation with your younger self, what would you tell him?
My younger self is that everything is going to be all right. I didn't know. Um, I made some good decisions, though, right? I made some good decisions, um, but there were some bad decisions that I made, but never bad decisions that were unrecoverable. But to follow your dream, to not wait so long, right? Because I've been having these type of thoughts for some time, but to follow your dreams and and to to utilize tenacity and perseverance and resilience and stay in the course. And when you do, it really tends to work out for you.
Right. And finally, one thing you want society to remember long after this episode ends.
That men need our help.
Okay. So before we wrap up, Dr. Brown, what kind of society do you think we should be aiming for? Like in your ideal world, what does a healthy society actually looks like?
People, empathy, acts of kindness, working together, collaboration, acceptance of others, despite you not understanding or it may look different, accepting variance and difference in others despite their walk of life, despite where he or she may be from, is very, very important. To embrace that mindset allows for a more productive society and a caring society that I would love to live in, and my kids to live in, and my grandkids to live in, as well as you.
Yeah, yeah, that's the society that we should be aiming for. So, before we wrap up this, would you like to share anything else to the audience and listeners? Any advice?
Not at this time, but I just thank you for this opportunity, this platform to be able to share this knowledge around this because it's not many people are talking about it. So
Yeah.
I'm exposing it. I'm exposing it so that they take this and run with it because it's not limited to the United States. It's across the globe in all 70 states. If I look at the 70 industrialized nations that I looked at, showed that men were suffering with suicide, incarceration, poor decision making, just. But I also think that I must say this: that in schools, that we must focus on this.
Yeah.
There must be policies that focus on this. That we work with boys on self-regulation and emotional regulation, boys and girls.
Yeah.
But boys need it more so because of what usually happens in there's a correlation between poor self-regulation and incarceration.
Hmm. Dr. Brown, honestly, this conversation was eye opening. Your book does not just talk about history, it forces you to look at yourself, at the world around you, and all the things we usually don't question. I really appreciate how honest and grounded your answers today. And to everyone listening, if you have not picked up the book yet, Shadows of Power, please do. It's available on Amazon, and it's one of those books that stays with you long after you read it. And you can also follow Dr. Kevin Brown on Instagram to see more of his creative work. And Dr. Brown, thank you again for being here, sharing
Thank
these
you.
things. And I really like the way you have put all things together in your book, the data, the research. It was very insightful to read your book. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.